A certain mother was asked by her little child, "Girl, a question like this, what is a sex, how to sex?" The mother was shocked till today. Isn't amazing to talk to children about the sex? The reality is that, never confuse sex with sexuality. Nadine Thornhill is sexuality educator.
I just want to clarify that there is a difference between sex and sexuality. Sex is either a biological category based on certain physical characteristics. It also refers to the activity or activities that we do with our bodies and sometimes other people's bodies, to feel good and have babies and a whole myriad of reasons. Sexuality are all the things that can be related to sex that inform our sexual beliefs and our sexual choices and our sexual experiences. So that's everything from anatomy, biology, reproduction, health, gender, orientation, pleasure. You can start talking about certain very basic aspects of sexuality from the time your kids are born.
To not talking your children about sex should result one of the issues like teenage pregnancy. Imagine in Brazil more than 400,000 teens become mothers every year. Can continue to silence about this? Look at the pain these young mothers they experience due to lack of accurate information about sexual reproductive health from their childhood. Victoria from Brazil, she experienced solid life.
I was so scared. I thought, my God, I'm only 14 and I'm going to be a mother. I was in shock. I was crying all the time and I was very, very depressed.
So, when and how can I start talking to my kids about sex?
Talking about sex and sexuality with young children. It's never too early to talk with your child about sex. Talking about sex, sexuality, and bodies from when your child is young can help your child understand that sex and sexuality are healthy parts of life. Open and honest conversations when your child is young can make later conversations easier. And these early conversations also lay the groundwork for children to make healthier choices about sex when they're older. The key early messages are that your child can come to you for open, honest, and reliable information, and that they shouldn't feel scared or embarrassed to ask you about sex and sexuality. And the good news is that talking about sex and sexuality isn't a one-off conversation that you have to get exactly right. It's a conversation that continues and evolves as your child grows up. Sexuality isn't just about sex. It's also about your child's identity and the way your child feels about their developing body. And it's how your child understands and expresses feelings of intimacy, attraction, and affection for others, and how your child develops and maintains respectful relationships. Talking about sex, 3 steps. These basic steps can help you talk with your child about sex. First, acknowledge that your child might be curious and find out what they already know. For example, where do you think babies come from? Or what have you heard about where babies come from? Second, correct any misinformation and give the facts. For example, you're almost right. Babies don't grow in their mummy's tummy. They grow in a special place inside the body, called the uterus. Third, use the conversation as an opportunity to talk about your own thoughts or feelings. For example, some people really want to have a baby when they're ready. Other people aren't too sure about having a baby at all. How to talk about sex, sexuality, and bodies, tips for all ages. These tips can make it easier to talk with children of any age about sex and sexuality. Explain things at your child's level. Explain things at a level your child can understand. For example, a 6-year-old won't want a long explanation of ovulation, although they might be fascinated to know very small eggs, or ova, can make a baby. It's best to keep your explanation brief, factual, and positive. If you can do this, your child will feel that they can come back to you whenever they want more information. Use correct names for body parts. It's best to use the correct names when you're talking about body parts, for example, penis, scrotum, testicles, vulva, vagina. This helps to send the message that talking about these parts of our bodies is healthy and okay. And if your child knows the correct names for body parts, your child will be able to communicate clearly about their body with you or people like doctors if they need to. You can be inclusive of people of all genders by talking about some or most people. For example, some people have penises, and some people have vulvas. Say I don't know if you need to. Your child doesn't need you to be an expert, your child just needs to know that they can ask you anything. If you don't know what to say, tell your child you're glad they asked, that you don't know the answer, and that you'll look for some information and get back to them. And then make sure you do get back to your child. Or you could look for the answer together. This builds trust and sends the message that you'll be honest with your child. Get all parents involved. In families with more than one parent, it's good for all parents to get involved in discussions about sex. When all parents are involved, children learn that it's okay for everyone to talk about sex and sexuality. This can help children to feel comfortable talking about their bodies, take responsibility for sexual feelings, and communicate in intimate relationships when they're older. Start a conversation. Some children don't ask many questions, so you might need to start a conversation. It's a good idea to think about what to say beforehand, then pick a good time to talk. For example, if someone is talking about pregnancy on TV, you could say, "They were talking about pregnancy on the TV earlier. It got me wondering if you know what that is?" Some children find it easier to talk without eye contact, so you could plan to talk while you and your child are traveling in the car. Prepare yourself. You might feel embarrassed or uncomfortable talking about sexuality, or using words like penis or vagina when talking about bodies. That's okay. It's a good idea to prepare yourself by thinking about what you're comfortable with and building on that. For example, if you're okay with talking about bottoms but not breasts, try using the word bottom in conversation to start with. Or you could practice with another adult. It's important for children to know the difference between touching that's okay and touching that's not okay. Make sure your child knows that they can say no to any touching that they don't want and that it's always okay to tell a trusted adult about touch that's not okay. You can start talking about sexual abuse and talking about consent when your child is young. 0 to 2 years, what to say about sex, sexuality, and bodies. You can use everyday moments to help your child learn about bodies. For example, bath time or while you're helping your child get dressed are good times to introduce the names of body parts. These can also be good times to send messages about healthy, natural behavior. For example, if your child touches their genitals while you're changing their nappy, that's okay. When they're older, you can talk about public and private behavior. 2 to 3 years, what to say about sex, sexuality, and bodies. Most children aged 2 to 3 years are very curious about their own and other children's bodies. They'll also notice that different bodies have different body parts. Your child might ask you why or say, "What's that?" You can teach your child that every body part has a name and its own job to do. For example, this is your vulva or your penis is where we comes out. Looking at books with your child can help. You can use the pictures to help your child learn the names for body parts and understand that bodies are different. You could try books like Hair in Funny Places by Babette Cole or Everyone's Got a Bottom by Tess Rowley. 4 to 5 years, what to say about sex, sexuality, and bodies. Children aged 4 to 5 years often ask where babies come from. They can understand that a baby grows in a uterus, and that to make a baby you need a sperm, like a tiny seed, and an ovum, like a tiny egg. If your child asks where do I come from, you could ask, what do you think? This helps you work out what your child is really asking and how much your child understands. You could give a simple explanation like babies grow in a place inside the body called the uterus. If you're pregnant, your child might ask, where does the baby come out? Give a simple but accurate answer like the baby is growing in my uterus. When the baby is finished growing, it might come out through the birth canal, which is called the vagina, or it might come out of a cut that the doctors will make on my tummy. 6 to 8 years, what to say about sex, sexuality, and bodies. By 6 years old, many children are interested in how babies are made and might ask questions. If your child asks, how did the baby get into your uterus, ask your child what they think. This helps you understand what your child already knows. Then you can explain simply, giving as much information as you're comfortable with. For example, to make a baby, a sperm and an egg join together. You could explain how this happens when two people have sexual intercourse and how a vagina and penis fit together. It's also good to explain that sexual intercourse is something that grown-ups do when they both want to and that it's not for children. You might also like to say that sometimes babies enter families in different ways, like IVF, adoption, foster care, or grandparent care. You don't have to wait for your child to ask you a question. You could start a conversation by asking, have you ever wondered how you were born and where you came from? Or you might see someone who's pregnant and say to your child, they have a baby growing inside them. Do you know how the baby got there? You could also read a book together about where babies come from, like Mummy Laid an Egg by Babette Cole. It's a good idea to start talking to your child about puberty and how bodies change in puberty well before your child starts puberty. This could be when your child is around 6 to 8 years old. If your child comes across sexting or pornography, stay calm. This can be an opportunity to talk with your child about what is and isn't okay for children to see. And talking about these issues is one of the best ways to keep your child safe online and promote respectful online behavior.